Thanks, Ceann Comhairle. I must say I was a bit surprised by the Minister's attitude in dealing with Deputy Donnelly's bill. I found him to be somewhat arrogant, flippant as to the intentions, which I think, to be honest, was uncalled for. I'm not taking offence on Deputy Donnelly's behalf or anything like that, but I do think we have to recognise that it is very worthy that we would have a discussion on the role of the media in Ireland, and I very much appreciate the intent in Deputy Donnelly's bill, because we do have a substantial problem here. In my opinion, the Father Reynolds debacle with RTE set a tone in many ways of self-censorship since that time. I think in terms of the print and broadcast media, an overwhelming chunk of which is privately owned and owned by one substantially wealthy individual, we have a situation in Ireland where, on the one hand, the days of investigative journalism are long dead, but yet on the other, the media seem to be able to print any sort of rubbish about private lives of citizens which are really of no public concern to anybody. So I don't think we've got the balance right in this country, and I do think we need to monitor it. I think we could learn a lot from France, where the French would be well known as great advocates of free speech and liberty and so on, and yet they have incredibly strict privacy laws and controls over the media. I think it is appropriate that that would happen and that we would have a balance, and I actually don't think we have it in Ireland. I'm not saying Deputy Donnelly's bill achieves that, but I do think the topic is very worthy of discussion further. The background to this is obviously the Pantygate scandal and the decision of RTE to award substantial sums of money on the alleged offence caused by Rory O'Neill describing individuals and the Iona Institute as homophobes. Now, the reason why there was a reaction to that and it caused a stir, to my mind, is that most reasonable people recognise that the remarks that were said were not offensive, but were in fact an accurate reflection of the views of those individuals. For me to respond to the poisonous bile written by Brenda Power this week in the Mail in relation to stereotyping and derogatory racist comments about the travelling and Roma community, for me to refer to that woman as a racist and a homophobe is not, she may find that offensive, but the reality is that that is an accurate reflection of the views of that woman. So I think we need to have a balance. To my mind, is the problem the law, or was it the self-censorship of RTE? And I think it was, because I think if that had been challenged in the courts, I don't think the people claiming the offence would have won that court action, and I don't think most reasonable people would be of that view also. The reason why RTE responded is that they were bending the knee to those with deep pockets, and that is all too prevalent in the media and something that we need to look at. Recently, well, not recently, about 6 or 7 months ago, I was asked to participate in a BBC4 radio programme in relation to Bono. 7 months ago. The BBC, I think, are broadcasting it this week, and the only reason they're broadcasting it this week is that over the past 7 months they have been subjected to enormous pressure from Bono's legal representatives, to the point that RTE would not even hand over footage of an interview that Bono had done to the BBC, which would be normally done, but it was the fear of litigation and a tight control on U2 and Bono monitoring what opinions went out about them. I think we saw it in relation to the penalty points saga, where we knew that media outlets were being very much pressurised by members of the judiciary who feared they would be named in the print media as being in receipt of having their penalty points cancelled and so on, and information not being put in the public domain as a result of that. We've mentioned in this House many times before the tragic case of Sarah Bland, who was sexually abused by her father. Again, Sarah and her mother have presented detailed criminal complaints to the Gardaí about the handling of their case by their solicitor at the time, Minister Shatter. Again, we know articles have been written about that case, but no one will print it. So there is, in the background to a lot of what goes out in the media, threats and fear of litigation. And that's good and that's bad. In essence, what it means is that there are very wealthy individuals in our society who are trying to block some important public information getting into the public domain. But I think it does link back as well to the control of and ownership of the media itself. That said, I think, I am in favour of free speech, of course, but I absolutely agree that that is not an absolute right, and it has to be balanced with other rights. That, to me, that goes without saying. I mean, the right to free speech is not the right to hate speech. It's not the right to say whatever you like, regardless of the consequences, because actions do have consequences, and what people say can set a tone. And I don't believe that people who like to promote a cheap stunt to promote themselves by writing or saying something offensive is tolerable in a democratic society. And I want to use one example in relation to that, which to me is very, very serious one, and it relates to the case of Colin Fulton and the Sunday World. Now, Colin Fulton is actually a member of the Progressive Unionist Party, a legally recognised and registered political party, and in my opinion he deserves, on that basis, to express his opinion and the views of his community without demonisation. Now, the Sunday World ran a series of articles which featured claims that Mr Fulton was involved in thefts from occupied houses, punishment attacks on teenagers, attacks on women, participation in illegal drinking clubs, the sale of drugs, and prominent involvement in the Ulster Volunteer Force. Now, despite the serious criminal allegations made by the Sunday World, he's actually never been convicted of anything and only once appeared in court, and those charges were proved, he was proven beyond any doubt whatsoever to be innocent. Subsequent to the publication of those articles, he's had information warning of serious threats to his life, 5 of them since the article was published. Now, Justice Watch Ireland and others believe that this publication and the judge citing the media's freedom of press has actually breached Mr Fulton's right to life, enshrined in Article 2, and Article 8, his right to privacy, and Article 10, his rights to expression. And I think we need to balance anything in that regard. Investigative journalism is very important, but what is printed should be substantiated with hard facts to back it up, and there should be a recognition that putting out opinion and information like that is highly prejudicial, in my opinion, as indeed was the information put out in that reprehensible article in the Mail earlier this week. So I actually welcome the fact that we're discussing this bill. I think it's very appropriate. I think it's something that Irish people are concerned about. I'm very glad to hear that the Minister is bringing a more comprehensive proposal before the House in the near future. That's great, because we do need it, because in some ways the media in this country is totally out of control in terms of some of the rubbish that it's printing with impunity, and on the other hand it has absolutely failed the citizens of this state in not calling the government to account, in not conducting any serious investigation, and in standing back at the slightest threat from those who have wealthy and deep pockets, and that is not in the interests of citizens in this state.